stand by while we modulate music. Alright, here we go. That one was a little bit weird to figure out. Good evening, fellow agents of mutuality. Welcome to our first half of Session 0 for Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition Technocracy Reloaded. As this is our Session 0 and we're running after Mutants Masterminds 3rd Edition, for the first 2 sessions we will be running slightly shorter sessions while we set the characters up and then run through their one-on-one intros to the game. And then by the time Steve fully transitions to Fridays, we'll be ready for our first full session. So, tonight you're going to have to listen to me talk a little bit as we talk about the history of your world, and then we're going to talk about magic and get you all set up with your magic powers. To the people watching, to save time and effort, we have had each of these 4 create their human characters ahead of time. We merely need to add the magic. As only myself and Sarah have played this before, we're going to go over all the magic bits, have them pick their cool stuff, and then they can tell you guys a little bit about their mortal sides, and then we can begin their one-on-ones. So we're going to go over enlightenment, genius, and avatar, and the spheres, and magic with that pretentious K. So, without much further ado, and my usual long spiel intro, we're going to jump right into this. But first, our fellow agents of mutuality are here, and we're going to let them tell you who they are and a little brief blurb about who they're going to be playing. Sean, go first.
At Space Lord PJs, I'm going to be playing who I have called Stan's Tiger. He is a White Toast eccentric Q branch special weapons test expert. He is a void engineer, so this should be fun.
Sarah,
Shall I?
Yes.
It's always after Sean. Always after Sean. No, I'm okay. So I'm Sarah, and I will be playing. I will be playing a character that I'm actually really excited to play. Kind of a scientist, mad scientist almost, but not quite. Little bit robotic, little bit innocent at heart. Who is known as 57. And you can find me on the internet at Neat Sullivan and other spaces and places and times and voids as Neat and Co Designs.
Awesome. Steven.
Hello, I am Steve/Steven. You can find me on the internet at Voodoo Arcade, and this is my first time playing Technocracy, so I am super excited to try this out. And I will be playing the so far nameless Men in Black.
And Eric.
Hey, I'm Eric. You can find me at Maron Recluse on Twitch or anywhere else on the internet as Recluse. And this is also my first time playing Mage the Ascension, so naturally I went against the grain and made a completely different character from what everybody else was making. And I'll be playing Walter Wasishu Spirit Talks, the nicotine-addicted dream speaker stool pigeon for the Technocracy.
All right. And before we get started, a couple shoutouts. Number 1, thanks to Onyx Path Publishing for making these awesome games, and all the writers who put in the effort to make them awesome, especially this product, which is Technocracy Reloaded, which will soon be ready. You can still get copies of it, though, on BackerKit, and I recommend you do because it's a great supplement, much like every other supplement they have made for Mage 20th Anniversary Edition. Next, thanks to Roll20 for providing our platform, and to Sirenscape, because you can't bring the world into a utopia of progress without epic music. And last but not least, thanks to my brother, N8 Mid, M-I-D-D, because he makes all of our custom Roll20 character sheets, including one for this game that lets us switch back and forth between tradition and technocracy for ease of wording, because he's awesome. So, as we begin, once again for the players, Sarah has played this game before for a few months, and no one else in the room but me has. It's my favorite World of Darkness game, possibly other favorite categories too, but for the rest of them, we're throwing them right into the deep end when World of Darkness games are concerned, so this'll be fun. On to you guys. So, first thing we're going to talk about is the world itself, so that you can understand better what the point of this game is and how the world works and its history, especially for your campaign, because there's a lot of possible histories with their timeline. That'll help you get a better handle of what's going on. Then we'll start talking about the magic, and we'll stop in between and have you add the things that still need added to your sheet, your enhancements, your enlightenment / arete, your spheres, all that good stuff, and explain what all those things mean. Most of this I'll be pulling straight from the books, for anyone who's curious, because they're better at explaining this than I ever would be. So, magic! Magic lives. The art of change has never gone away. Though the age of sorcerers has faded to mythology, magic holds a real and vibrant role in the world you know. Don't think so? Look around. We fly over oceans and look across time. The distance between Dallas and Tokyo can fit in your pocket. You could craft whole worlds out of numbers on a screen, or visit Africa without leaving your chair. If that's not magical, what is? Magic isn't witches on brooms or demons conjured in the night. It can be, but it's not limited to that. Magic, with that pretentious K, is the force of possibility, and now, more than perhaps ever before, it seems as though all things are possible. And yet we're told that the age of miracles is over. We're living in the end times. A hopeless grind where novelty is just another pop-up ad. We've been set against one another in a round-robin game of trivial pursuits. The best we can hope for, we're told, is a big house and a warm bed and a bunch of money in the bank. So sit the fuck down, shut the fuck up, have your TV and a Big Mac and think you've got it made. Drop the music a little bit. Bullshit. Wake up. Your future's on the table. There's a war all around you with reality itself at stake. In the neon shadows of a tech-besotted world, there are agents of change fighting to forge your future. Some look like Hogwarts refugees or Terminator clones. Some throw fire or call down storms, but most of them look just like you or me. But looks can be deceiving. Call them mystics, call them mages, call them technocrats or mad ones. But don't presume they aren't there. Because there's a war on. And now you're part of it. So what is a mage? Put simply, a mage is a person with the power to reshape reality through sheer force of will. Awakened to their potential, such people believe so strongly in what they do that they literally change the world. With that power, though, comes overwhelming pride, fanaticism, and corruption. That same power of belief often pits mages against one another, against their surroundings, and against themselves as well. Their will to power becomes the power to destroy. Ideally, mages strive for a lofty goal, ascension. The problem is they all disagree about what that means. Should it be transcendence, universal peace, heaven, hell? Is magic given by gods? Does it come from you? Everyone's got answers, but no one knows the truth. And so, like religious creeds or political factions, mages fight about their ideals. Out of good intentions, they drag their world towards the abyss. Who are the bad guys? Who's the good guys? Although the Technocracy, a monumental faction of ruthless technomancers, gets stuck with the nickname Black Hats and Mirror Shades, all mages are at heart heroic monsters. Some have more blood on their hands than others, but every one of them holds the seeds of corruption. Through their Ascension War, they forced their wills upon one another for 1,000 years, and as a result, everyone else has suffered. This paradox, terrible actions for lofty goals, is the price of pride and power. At the center of this game, there's a bitter conflict. The Ascension War provides the framework amongst 4 factions: the Traditions, the Technocracy, the Marauders, and then the Fandi. They tore their world apart in previous editions of this game in the name of their ideals. In this new version, the war is far from over. But now, most factions have looked forward to making themselves better and progressing, because Mage at its heart is dynamic and ever-changing, and is, at its heart, progress. Only one faction remains that's a true villain, but the rest still fight amongst each other, trying to win a war that doesn't need to be fought. So who are these factions anyways? The Traditions, this would be Eric, are devoted to mystic wonder, ranging from weird science to bloody rituals, to ecstatic trances done while smoking good reefer in a hot hut. The Technocracy, most of all the rest of you, dedicated to an orderly world under their command where everyone marches in lockstep toward an ultimate ascension to utopia. The Marauders, who see chaos as the ultimate truth, and who have seen too much magic and the madness has taken them into another reality and they can drag you there with it. And last but not least, the Nafandi, to whom light and hope are the ultimate hypocrisy, the real villains. Outside these factions, other mages shape their own paths, referred to as disparates, who refuse to join a side and work instead towards whatever their personal goals are. Not every mage fights the Ascension War, but most or many do. And even those who avoid the war feel the effects, because it shapes the world as an awakened mage knows it. Reality itself is both a prize and a battlefield. As a mage or a technocrat, then, your challenge is to claim a destiny in this world. You might be a cyborg, a street shaman, a steampunk scientist. The role is up to you. What's important is what you do with it, and what it does to you. Even though big factions fight a battle for reality, a mage is, by your very nature, a force of change. The ultimate battlefield is inside you. So, the game itself, talking about themes and moods. This is not like most of the other Onyx Path games we play. Horror and hope in a world of darkness. The Mage the Ascension story features tales of heroism and atrocity. In the world of darkness, hope is in short supply. Nights seem darker and more sinister. Screams and gunshots echo through the streets. Gothic cathedrals tower along neon Babylons of glass and steel. Nightclubs shake to techno thunder, while desperate souls seek solace or oblivion in street corners and alleyways. Drug wars and religious violence spill blood with awful frequency. Legendary monsters exist and hunt their prey, even when such things are supposedly impossible. People cower in front of TVs and computers, watching events from a distance. Churches host fanatic congregations who pray for celestial deliverance, but the deliverance never comes. Everything seems possible, but the strongest possibility is that everything is just shit. Typically, the setting hovers somewhere between end of an age decadence of the 90s and the desperate fury of the new millennium. Our game will be taking place only a few years from now in a changed world, 2022.
Right around the corner.
Yes. The main themes of a Mage game are hope and transformation, because, above all other things, Mage is about giving a damn. While other folks are hopeless or content enough to accept what they've been given, mages change the picture. They disagree, often violently, about what the picture should look like, but apathy is not in their nature. Also, you are power incarnate. What you will be. That power can go to your head, corrupt you, and destroy everything you hold dear, but it's still there no matter what. The dominant theme then is hope and transformation. Nothing can stay the same with a being that has that kind of power inside of them. The mood of a typical Mage game is defiance and reflection. Life sucks, so fix it, because you can. Whether you're playing a desperate street kid, an enlightened CEO, a kung fu hero, or a classy sorcerer, your world seems intent on fucking you over. But you can stop it and fuck back. Questions so far?
And when do we get to the fucking back part?
Very soon.
Is that actually in the script?
What, the fucking back part? Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay. Now for the exciting part. We're going to talk about the history of the world in this game that will help you understand your place in it and how it's different. I'm going to skip what's unimportant, even so there's going to be a bit. So, after the Big Bang, skip that part, there was the Awakening Era. The forces of the Big Bang, or whatever you want to call how everything started, shaped the Earth as you know it. The crown jewel of the heavens, or maybe just another spinning rock in the universe. Either way, it's your home. In the first days, the gods walked across that home, giants in the world. They shaped it, claimed it, chose their people, and set the world into form. They're referred to in mage parlance as the pure ones, living shards of the divided one, which was whatever essence created all. They incarnated themselves into human form and into human flesh, so that they could interact with us, which we were their creations, or sprang from them, or you pick your mythology. That part doesn't really matter. The truths are lost to time. What is true is that at some point we fell from the mythical isn't the word. What's the word I'm looking for? Mythological. We'll go with that. Eden and into the earth and away from the glory of God. Whatever that means from whatever mythological book or religious book you pick, the stories are the same, and it is certain that at some point we fell from perfection and retained a spark of magic, but it was mostly buried inside of us as we splintered away from whatever initial purity and perfection there was. At that point, we stopped being hunters and became prey. A great fall cast us down from Eden and wrecked celestial harmony in the world. Monsters chased people into caves and clawed their way into the people's deepest memories. We became toys for demons and fiends, and this was called the Predatory Age, where humans ran through shadows like frightened mice. In time, fire and stone, magic and faith drove the monsters back, and we formed tribes, creeds, early technologies, and rose above the beasts. Kingdoms rose, names that may or may not be real, like Atlantis, Mu, Hyperborea, and Nod. Either way, this was known as the Legendary Period. When that ended, in the Cataclysm Age, something terrible happened once again and reset everything, and almost everyone was wiped out. Probably by water, but who knows who started it or why. Again, that's lost to time. Jumping forward a lot, we'll enter the classical area. Swords and spells in the classic area. Israel, Troy, Babylon, Queen Meroe, the Olmecs, the Persians, the Nubians, the Mycenaeans, Aryans, all of that time period forged vast empires of steel and magic. Everything was possible and everyone believed in everything. Dragons walked the earth. People across the world exchanging magic's goods, technologies, and creeds. Advancements were made. Through it all, mages around the world joined together in fellowships or divided themselves into warring clans. Written language originates around this time and started preserving records. One thing from that period stands above the others known as the Himalayan Ores. This happened around 900 BCE, when a group of Indian Thanatoics and Asian Akashics suffered a profound misunderstanding. That misunderstanding provoked a war that raged for centuries and left permanent distrust between the rival factions. Because both the Indian faction and the Asian faction embraced reincarnation, mages slain through the conflict kept being reborn to fight it again. In later years, it will be said that this conflict was intentional. In either way, it was miserable for all concerned.
We're referring to this as a misunderstanding.
Lost to history. Yes,
Wow.
between the Indian subcontinent and basically Tibet, and a time long lost, yes.
Sure.
The worst elements of the mystic conflict flickered across Lower Asia and Upper Africa for almost 600 years. War marked this entire period, Celts raging across Europe, Greeks, Persians, Assyrians, Nubians, Chinese, Koreans, Aryans, Egyptians, and Hebrews all attacking each other endlessly. Great discoveries were made then, too, as well as great works of art, but the entire world seemed to be at war. This is when mages discovered a strange principle: reality is not constant. This is when they first really began to gain power, above the monsters and the beasts and the other terrors of the night. jumping through a lot of unnecessary fluff for the purposes of this description. This is how artisanship came about. The mages basically brought that to the world through their will working, the art of enlightened technology, especially in China and Greece. Philosophy, scientists, artisans, all of that, side by side with the mystics, started to raise humankind above the monsters around it. Throughout the classic area, you start to see the current groups begin to take shape. That's why that matters. The Hermetic orders emerged in Egypt, Greece, Nubia, and Rome. The Dalao Lao Shi Chinese sacred artisan technologists faction arises now. The Pythagoreans, the Collegium Precepti, which is the precursors of your faction. The Akashayana, the Akashic Brotherhood, the Chakravanti, the Ali Batin, the Eleusinians. You're going to hear these terms later. You don't have to write it down now. The Great Mother Temples, the Mithraics, the Druids, the Nago-Ami, the Uzoma, the Wulong, Messianic Voices, the Taftani, and the Buddhist sages, and the Abrahamic prophets. This led to the High Mythic Age. The cracks appeared as barbarians, quote-unquote, oppressed by empires began to gnaw at the empires, infiltrated them, and it gradually tore them all down. The birth of the Christ heralded the fall of older gods. Who and what they may have been is lost to time and is, of course, fought bloodily down the ages. But in the world of Mage, it is the truth that the being did exist and had power. Faiths clashed as tribal cultures grew to hordes. The hubris of Egypt, Greece, Carthage, Israel, Rome, Persia, and other empires led to their expansion and collapse and expansion and collapse. You've read history. The era of the Vandals, the Visigoths, and the Huns turned cities into ruins. China's empire teetered between internal wars and external invasions, eventually breaking into three warring kingdoms. By around 600 CE, so now we're 1,000 years later, the classical empires were mostly gone, and with them their hold on consensual reality. Things changed a lot in this time because region to region, reality might be different, because the people in control there were setting it. There was no grand universal idea of what reality was. This starts to lead into the era after Rome's collapse that history calls the Dark Ages, although that's not really true. Though a lot of Greco-Roman culture slipped between the cracks, China remained strong. Lower Asia enjoyed the golden age of India, Korea and Tibet emerged as vibrant powers, and the Mayan expansion in Lower America and the Axum in Upper Africa began a golden age of magic for those periods, just not for Western civilization. Even though we typically think the universe revolves around us. Without a lot of centralized influence, there was a lot of rapid change and a lot of rapid rise and fall. After this comes the period of the Web of Faith. Islam rises from this golden age, where they experienced science, faith, and magic becoming almost indistinguishable. The Collectors of Light epitomize this fusion, combining Allah's creed with ancient wisdom to forge new mystical technologies. The Taftani forged a single group. The Ali Batin created the actual Web of Faith, which is an existing set of ley lines of power that protects the Middle East and also endlessly causes it to tear itself apart. To this day, that persists. The alliance of these mages finally ended as an infernal Devil King age became dominant. That had dominated the Middle East for 6 centuries, stopped being dominant. Kabbalism emerges at this point also. Islam expands throughout Mediterranean Europe and Upper Africa, holding various traditions from all sorts of places under the banner of the Prophet. Kingdoms thrived in the African interior, and magic is on the rise there as well. In Europe, the North African Berbers and the Arabs ruled most of Iberia. For those who don't know, Spain, Portugal. A pinnacle of medieval European civilization. Divided, like most of Europe, into fractions, a lot of what they created in that time has been lost to history. Later generations tend to dismiss this era as the Moorish conquest, but there was a lot more to it than that in the secret history of the magic world. After centuries of skirmishes between rival factions, the Order of Hermes came together on Midwinter Night in 767 CE. Lady Trianima, a Gnostic seer, foresaw the imminent collapse of the Hermetic ways as she gathered allies to establish an alliance. Divided into 12 houses, these wizards pursued a synergetic form of high ritual magic. They enjoyed perhaps their greatest triumph soon afterward, defeating a Turkish necromancer, and from him, seizing the massive stronghold that exists high in the deep Umber called Doistep.
Those damn Gnostics, every time.
Around the same time, an order of Christian warrior magi swore fealty to Charlemagne, echoing an older legend of King Arthur and Camelot. These Palatine knights drew upon classical lore, Romanized Christianity, and the nascent form of what would become chivalry. Recognizing a potential threat, pagan mystics banded together in loose confederations, sometimes referred to as spirit talkers, Valdermen, and devotees of the Old Faith. The early buddings of Eric's faction. And there were other groups too, of course. The Dragon Emperor rises in this period, which is in Asia and China, and causes a lot of change there. Causes them to jump ahead of the world somewhat in technology. It's a story for another day. And then the Sorcerer's Crusade began. Wolfgang von Reisman was a man who believed in revolution. Let's hear it, Steve. I'm supposed to say Viva la Revolution here.
Oh, I was like, what do you want me to do? Viva la Revolution.
Angered by warring wizards and sorcerous tyrants, this man convened the Gathering of the Square in Frankfurt during the summer of 997 CE. This assembly formed an alliance of Gabrielite knights, enlightened craftsmen, and the Cabal of Pure Thought, an alliance that would soon blow the high mythic ages apart. Meanwhile, the Hermetic Order ripped itself to pieces. Houses Tremere and Flambeau exterminated the druidic house Diedni between 1003 and 1012. Tremere's Primus secretly became a vampire and turned his house into a clan of undead monstrosities. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out how to get eternal life from a vampire, you become a vampire. Whoops! While Christianity gained power, pagan mystics opened the paths of the Wick and herded magical beasts into the other worlds. The Crusades pitted Christian and Muslim mages and mortals against one another for 2 centuries, leading to new sects, including the Knights Templar, new Hermetic houses, and the first stirrings of the Sons of Ether. Alliances between African and European sects fractured here, not to be reformed without force for a very long time. And the Hermetic Order continued to fracture also, keeping that alive. House Tremere incites all-out war in 1201 with the traditions. Doesn't win. Distracts the traditions, though. And a lot of strange things happen in this period, including an English visionary, Stephen Trevannis, defending the poor folk in the name of His Majesty, King Richard the Lionhearted. People called him Robin Hood. Trevannis turned his reward from the king into the Hanseatic League, an alliance of merchants, artisans, and craftsmen that erected the pillars of a much more potent order. And then the cannons roared. 1210 begins the fall of the High Mythic Age. The Craftsman Convention, tired of seeing the world torn apart by out-of-control sorcerers summoning horrors into the world and causing mortals to die left and right, decided it's time to take a stand. They laid the groundwork for a pending Order of Reason. And then, with new forged cannons and age-old treacheries, destroyed the Hermetic Covenant of Mistrich, a major powerhouse for the Hermetic Order. Invaders, bringing their own war shamans, tore through Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. 2 decades later, the Catholic Church officially declares Inquisition to purge heretics, witches, Jews, Muslims, and sorcerers from Europe.
Wow.
A lot of older factions were shattered, and the traditions were weakened. The Ascension War has begun. In Asia, Genghis Khan absorbs China into his empire, adopting technological weaponry and governance. The Kamikaze War between China and Japan brings new allies to the Akashic Brotherhood, and ancient hatreds are forged that exist to this day, very sadly, in or out of a fictional world. Shinto mystics, whose shamanic ways blended well with the Taoist elements of the Way, spring to life. Even here, the clash between enlightened science and awakened magic turns the tide, or in this case, the winds and the weather. The next century, the writing is on the walls. Between March 1st and March 25th, 1325, the Convention of the White Tower takes place. and the Order of Reason begins. Called together in a tower once owned by an assassinated Hermetic Master, delegates from Europe, China, the Middle East, India, and Mali forge an alliance that would one day become the Technocratic Union. Under an inner circle council, 8 conventions form: Gabrielites, the High Guild, the Cassian Circle, the Void Seekers, the Celestial Masters, the Craft Masons, the Artificers, and the Solificati. This in turn kicks off a century of war, both open and covert. The Solificati leave the Order in 1335, to be almost destroyed but not quite. Not long afterward, a screaming ghost purge, I would ask, pitted the Wulong and Dao Lo Lao Shi against the Akashics.
No. You don't get to just jump over that.
Maybe you'll find out. You'll love it. It's a very powerful spell.
You said screaming
ghost purge. Sometimes you just gotta purge a bunch of bitches with ghosts.
I want that.
New enlightened technologies drove the Brotherhood into remote mountain retreats throughout Mongolia, Tibet, and Japan. They suffered heavy casualties and lost a lot of influence. Other wars begin, and the Order of Reason gains power while the traditions lose ground. But this is also when the 9 traditions decide we need to quit killing each other and band together before these new guys are talking about this science nonsense, get us all killed or burned at the stake or some shit. And this is how the traditions are born as a unified faction. They got a slow but brilliant start. And they persist to this day, despite your best efforts.
In what context is brilliant being used there?
Full of light and majesty, not necessarily geniuses.
Okay. I was legitimately unsure.
Yes. The traditions have a lot of ideas, but are rarely referred to as brilliant in the sense that their ideas are amazing. So I can jump ahead a little and tell you the main difference between your faction and theirs is traditions believe in freedom to an extent where they can't even get along with each other. Technocracy believes everyone should be in perfect unity to the point that sometimes originality is crushed. Everybody's wrong in some way.
Congrats, we all suck.
That's correct. You're all trying, though, except the Navandi. They all suck for real.
They're the ones that broke away and went to do their own thing that totally sucks.
They're not we'll get to them later. They're not in any of these factions.
Oh.
They're
okay.
in all of them, but they're not any of them.
Sorry.
They're infiltrating them all.
I thought that was one of the original 8 you said that dipped.
Close similar names. Solificati.
Okay. I'm gonna learn these names one day. And Sean,
Yes.
I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, you are muted.
Muted in the wrong place.
There we go.
The Nishandi don't like the fact that coffee makes you happy in the morning, so that really upsets them.
Navandi
Oh,
probably
fuck
wouldn't
them.
like coffee now.
Right, so
They suck.
yeah.
Damn, it's like that level of no joy.
Wait, you guys missed my screaming ghost joke where like
We
nobody
missed
can get
everything
any
you
Do
sleep?
said for
now.
the last
Do it.
5 minutes.
We're still close enough
Like,
to
you
that
know-
for you to do it.
You're trying to get some sleep, and there's nothing but just a bunch of screaming ghosts outside. Just like, shut up! I'm trying to get some sleep.
Oh my
All
God,
you do
that's
is
the-
scream
that's the
all
spell.
day.
The spell is just a bunch of ghosts just like won't leave you alone for like 4 weeks.
Like
I
we
guess
got
a
it.
month.
You're ghosts.
It's
You
amazing.
don't like that.
One of
Good
them is
job or
half-hearted, and so it just goes.
Ah.
"Eh,
Ooh.
Yeah.
Stupid
Ooh,
spell.
are you scared?
eh."
So, at this period when the council rises, the March of the Nine sees the first cabal of the most powerful of each of the sects march out of our world. It's from Horizon and all the way to Doizatep in the deep far Umbra. We'll get to that later too, but there's levels of distance from Earth with other dimensions, and the far Umbra is as far away as you can get. Not a great place unless you're powerful enough to hold your little realm together within it. Their example leads other groups to do the same. And the Solificati, who have broken away from the budding Technocracy by now, decide to spring a trap on some of the ones trying to escape the Horizon. And after a massive battle and a really nasty trap, the Cabal is shattered. However, they take a lot of people with them. And the the worst of them all, who was called Thoabath, Abomination, or the Great Betrayer, was taken to Horizon, and for the first time ever in recorded history, Gilgo was performed. Everyone saw that Gilgo was possible, and everything changes. Gilgo is the ultimate way a tradition mage can punish another mage, and it rips your avatar out and destroys it, leaving you as an empty, soulless husk of a human. It destroys your spark.
So tradition people can cast Golga that rips your soul. Sorry?
Gilgul. Gilgul. Which
rips your essence from your body.
Destroys your avatar, your genius, utterly.
Okay, destroys your avatar. Okay. Can we go back 2 sentences?
Yes.
Can you tell me who Throw a Bath is?
The guy that led the Solificati. The guy that led the Solificati on a mission to...
don't care who he is. His name's Throw a Bath.
Steve cares. He's a real bad guy who led a faction that broke away from the Technocracy because the Technocracy wasn't hardcore enough for them. They ambushed a bunch of tradition mages leaving for Doisatep and just straight murdered them.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Solificati.
And that was because he was afraid of...
No, because he wanted to murder a bunch of bitches.
Got it. Okay.
Solificati, real bad.
All right.
In the wake of this, remaining traditions
we've lost Sean
sequester themselves in Horizon, leaving most of the Earth open to the Order of Reason. That's the first time the Order of Reason attacks the traditions in other dimensions, directly attacking Horizon in the Concordia War. Didn't lose, but the traditions got their asses kicked pretty good. And so the 9 traditions go underground, and for about 300 years they stay there, rebuilding their strength, while the Order of Reason rampages across the world. So, jumping forward a little, around 1350, a marauding confederacy of bandits called the Red Turbans begin to undermine Mongol China. Forming a disciplined military force with substantial mystic power, they spread throughout the region with a network of secret, often magical societies. Winning the common people over, Chu Young Chung expanded the Turbans' influence into Korea. After years of war, he declared himself Emperor Hong Wu and initiates the Ming Dynasty. This becomes a hotbed of magical secret societies and fun things in history in the magical world. In what would soon be called Central America, the Aztec Empire brings forth enlightenment brutally. You could read that in history too. During the mid-1400s, a pair of Iberian warrior monarchs, King Ferdinand of Aragon and Queen Isabella of Castile, consolidate power, obtain aid from the Church and the Order of Reason, overthrow the remaining Muslim kings, and united a new nation called Spain. We all know what happened there.
Nothing bad.
The following centuries defy easy summation. Across the globe, however, it was an age of technocratic dominion.
I have a quick comment. We're in like the mid 1400s. I feel like Martin Luther's got a couple of things to say about all this shit going on.
Possibly.
And
he's gonna nail it to your door, damn it!
Right? Like
you're gonna start hearing some of the darker side of your faction's history. They weren't always progress and enlightenment.
Okay.
In the original versions of this game, mechanically speaking, they were the bad guys in the 90s, straight up.
Would make
sense.
sense.
Play Technocracy, they were villains.
Yeah.
That started changing in 2nd edition. It's changed completely now in the 20th anniversary.
Okay.
The European Renaissance drove all traces of the older pagan age into the wilderness and into the fire. Science blossoms. This, of course, is not our science, but a furious blend of inquiry, piety, religion, and alchemy. But, still science. Take what you can get. So, let's go and skip things we don't care about and hit interesting periods of this history. I should point out that during this period, the Order of Reason promotes a lot of progress in the form of go out into the world and crush all those heathens doing the old crazy magic and bring them enlightenment. They would fund this in any way possible. Like the Spaniards going to America, the British going to Africa. Yeah, that was kind of gross. So, obviously, unity was a long way off. The Burning Times, initiated by the Order of Reason and the Church working together. So again, in this world, most of the people burned were witches, but still lots of innocent women were burned too. So let's jump forward a lot more to the time of Steam and Steel. Industrial Revolution at this period. Both the Traditions and the Technocracy consider Victoria a Daedalian master. She was a mage. She, of course, spread England across the globe. Technocracy helped her a lot, but they don't talk about that much anymore. The pinnacle of technocratic society at the time, filthy, polluted realms of horrific poverty and seething oppression. This, however, though, is when other factions begin to solidify into their current forms. This is when a new sect, a new technocratic sect is born called the Electrodyne Engineers, who eventually will leave the Technocracy to become the Sons of Ether. Steampunk magic. Good times. Jumping
Edgelords
forward.
extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And when do we time travel back to then?
I don't know if that'll happen in this game. That'll happen in a game.
Steampunk magic.
Oh no, they still exist. Sons of Ether would be on Eric's side of the faction. Not yours.
Okay, Tyler, you can't hide these things from me.
Only Eric was allowed to not be the Technocracy, sir.
Oh
He
man!
called it first.
Now I gotta be Magic Fox Mulder. Lame.
Magic Fox Mulder. Magic Cyborg Fox Mulder.
Now if we jump forward to the turn of the century, when we start to see the modern era, there was a resurge of the Traditions coming out of hiding. This period manifests to the humans as the 20s, when all of a sudden spiritualism became huge again and everyone started believing in supernatural hardcore. Can you guess how the Technocracy dealt with that?
He didn't.
Well, they did.
Bad.
What happened around that period, Eric? Around the
Prohibition?
Roaring 20s. Before the Roaring 20s.
World War One.
World War
Prohibition?
One. Yes.
Wow, for real?
The Technocracy will never admit it, but the Traditions will all say they started World War One.
So did they assassinate the Archduke because he was a magic person?
No,
No.
I don't actually have that in
Wanted
this
an
book, but
excuse.
that is explained in one of the books. I don't remember
Oh,
what the exact
okay.
story is.
Sounds like they started a war to cover the fact that they're going behind the
They were
curtain
losing,
to like
yes.
murder everybody.
Well, because they were
God.
starting to lose to the rise of spiritualism in that period. Well, everybody was into seances and stuff.
Really? They were losing to Madame Blavatsky?
For a little while,
Yeah,
Jeez.
Ouija boards.
it's not about the person, it's about what you can convince everyone is real.
I mean, sure.
So, this is also when it becomes clear that the Fallen are playing chess with the world and all factions.
Mm.
So, World War I ends, a truce is called between the Technocracy and the Traditions. Everything looks aces. From the newsreels, it looked marvelous. Germany, Italy, and the newcomers in Japan were full of hope and vital. Powers were rising. Everyone was getting along. It was all peaches and roses, right?
Sunshines and rainbows.
We all know what happened next. World War II splits the Traditions and the Technocracy. Mages on both sides join the Axis or the Allies. Factions are broken. Power bases are ruined. Although a few mystics ran and hid. Most folks understood just how high the stakes were now. As atrocities came to light, and proud, supposedly enlightened leaders of the Axis were revealed as the monsters they were, the truth becomes obvious. The Nefandi had gone for all the marbles and almost won. This became an age of paradox, a cosmic Armageddon of mythic proportions. Magic and machines clashed from one end of the earth to the other. Only South America was truly spared. There's a lot of awesome material in this period about World War II and the secret magic wars. At this point, the Difference Engineers break Technocratic ranks because most of the Technocratic Council had sided with the Axis before the truth was known. They're disgusted with the faction, they leave, and they become the Virtual Adepts, the other techno faction on Eric's side. Possibly the inventors of the internet. And by that I mean the internet you can walk around in like in Tron. So, I wouldn't have said it. Anyways, also at this time...
My goal is to get Tyler to crack up on the side Discord.
For Eric's point of view, one of the most important factions in the war were all enlightened, and they were called Wind Talkers. A faction of dream speakers, because in this world, a lot of Native Americans are enlightened. Even though mages as a whole are a small percentage of people. For a time, as I said, the Technocratic leadership stands behind the Axis war machine, but as the extent and nature of the horror becomes unavoidable, they turn against the Axis. This is when the balance of power shifts, and Hitler starts losing everything because he's going insane and decided to attack two superpowers at once because he was smart. And that, of course, leads into the Cold War. The Cold War becomes kind of a Cold War between the traditions and the technocrats. Both factions exist, neither is ascendant, but the real war for the hearts and minds becomes the battleground, less of fireballs and laser cannons at each other, even though that's still happening.
I have a question.
Yep.
So you mentioned in like the World War II era that mages inner faction were kind of splitting and going into different groups. Does that kind of remedy itself after the war, or
A minority of the traditions back the Axis. They very quickly just figure out that this is gross, and they back off, and they all join the Allies. A minority of the Technocracy joins the Allies, but once the Technocracy see what the Nefandi are doing and the atrocities happening, they turn and join with the tradition, and a truce is forged, and everyone goes against the Nefandi, who are the true masterminds of World War II's horrors.
Okay, so by the end of the war, the factions that
everyone is against Nazi atrocities, Japanese atrocities, except Japanese Empire atrocities, except the Nefandi. Yes.
Okay.
Is like every major event in human history just some mage thing happening?
The mages are part of every major event, but they don't cause every major event. No.
Okay. I mean,
a lot of them,
based
but
on
not
what
all
they're doing and a lot of the influence and things like that, they just kind of have to get involved in all of these things.
They co-opted, or they
because
along, or
because they're agents of reality, they're always involved, but they're not necessarily started it. But in the history of this game, though, World War II was caused by evil, gross super mages that are all about destruction and pain.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that as we move into the Cold War era, that
nobody's
the
on the side of atrocity,
is back to kind of being a unified thing. Okay, cool.
And they have their own atrocities, but nothing like World War II.
Sure. Not
This jumps through the 60s and counterculture, and then we jump into the 80s and the wall falls.
Okay, no, I changed my mind. I want to go be a mage in the 60s.
It's an interesting era to play the game in.
However, Sex, love, and LSD, dude.
However, you wouldn't want to be Technocracy, because that's when the pogrom begins in real earnest, which we'll get to in a bit here.
Okay.
However, suffice to say, jumping through the modern century without touching on every major event, magical or otherwise, folly and pride have clearly shaped your world of darkness. Instead of ascending, people suffer. Despite magnificent achievements, the human animal is a caged beast at war with itself. The monsters moving through the night are monsters, but really they're just reflections of the human heart. And at this period, we entered the 90s, and a reckoning draws close. The 1990s began an era of apocalypse, a reckoning of sin, destiny, and punishment. Forces gather and converge in monumental showdowns. Strongholds fall, masters perish. And the late 1990s are a disaster for the tradition. Sorry, Eric, I know it's going so well. Hermetic rivalries tear Doisatep apart. The Thanatoic Master Vormus goes rogue. And the Ascension Warrior leads an army of angry young mages into Horizon and levels the place. In the Second Masasa War, the Order of Hermes goes to war with vampires. Everybody loses. During a week of nightmares in early June 1999, some sort of godlike monster rises in Bangladesh. The Technocracy, in a moment of desperation, nukes the Indian subcontinent. Shortly afterwards, the Avatar storm is unleashed, along with a variety of other metaphysical disasters. The traditions blame the Technocrats, and the Technocrats blame the traditions, but no one really knows who started the Avatar storm. The dimensional anomaly to you guys. A storm, like a literal storm, tears through all realities and prevents anyone from getting very far outside of Earth without being literally torn apart. Not long after this, a technocratic force, led by Sean's faction, forces their way through the storm and wipes out what's left of Horizon, killing most of the surviving elders and obliterating the home of the traditions. The Technocracy intensifies the pogrom, and by the opening of the new millennium, the Ascension War enters a new phase. The Technocracy, in nearly as much disarray as the traditions because of the dimensional anomaly, as earthbound technocrats get cut off from their deep universe constructs, they wind up presiding over an apparently apathetic human race. Sure, you got the upper hand, but the traditions and the disparates have survived worse. The masses surprise everyone with their combination of self-indulgence, fanaticism, and a sudden hope for a better tomorrow. The traditions rally once again as the Avatar storm subsides, and darker threats are discovered in the deep umbra. Ascension, though delayed, cannot be denied. The Avatar storm disrupts access to Horizon constructs and Technocracy colonies alike. Cuts the front lines off from the inner circle, guts the ranks of the Void Engineers, and brings many Earthbound technocrats face to face with the frailties of their own practices. After a briefly intensified pogrom, the Union confronts its excesses and refocuses on perfecting science and technology for their own sake. This redirection nurtures the Technocracy's more human side, especially among the mechanized ranks of Iteration X for good and ill. Certain machinocrats wind up softening their rigidity, but the mortal flaws of greed, selfishness, and distraction begin undermining technocratic stability. Convention relationships fracture. One particular event, referred to as the Greylock Incident of 2006, causes a major rift between Iteration X and the New World Order. Stories differ, of course, but the end result of a fight between Iteration X shock troops and the Hermetic Mages of the Greylock Chantry is a monumental explosion that kills or injures hundreds of technocrats, particularly among the NWO. This, combined with the financial crash of 2008 and the rising tide of rebellion among the masses, pushes the NWO towards a defensive leadership role. The Syndicate and Progenitors grow closer together. Iteration X flounders and the Void Engineers, having suffered the worst losses from the dimensional anomaly, close ranks, adopt a military leadership called the Existential Threats Directorate, and wage a determined campaign of salvage and war. By 2012, the Union faces a potential split down the middle, with the NWO on one side, the Syndicate on the other, and the other three conventions having to choose a side. But before civil war can erupt, the Dimension Storm fades. Many constructs are found operational. Colonies have suffered great losses but are rebuilding, and the Union has become more humane and is looking at long-term reform. Humanity sees a resurgence in belief of the supernatural, but their dependence on technology dramatically rises, allowing for easier use of hyperscience among the civilians. In 2016, the Void Engineers announced they have found the remnants of the leadership of the Panopticon locked in a pocket dimension and work to free them. In 2019, General Augustine Aleph, long thought lost to the dimensional anomaly, leader of the Panopticon and the face of the Technocracy, broadcast to all technocrats the simple message: you are no longer alone. The Panopticon reemerges, and Troll once again begins issuing orders. Now it's 2022, and it is a future world of technology and superstition blending into a new whole that no one can predict. In an age of revelations, the Ascension War rages on. End history lesson.
It's kind of dope.
Yeah. Super short and two. It's kind of dope how they wrote the history in. So,
do I need to learn about these religion?
what?
the group that the NWO is in. Loggerheads? Is that the term?
That's starting to fade because the Panopticon has reasserted authority. So the Panopticon was a unifying group that existed in a space station that was in orbit that you couldn't see unless they let you see it. At one point, the space station basically surrounded the planet. It's a big space station. They could see everything. The NWO, that's what they do. They see things, they get information, and they make use of it. And they had an organism or organization, no one knows, called Control, that would issue orders to groups of Panopticon squads. And they would go out in the world, crush reality deviants, and enforce consensus. With the Panopticon in control, there was no disunity. The disunity was because they lost control and unity through the Avatar Storm. When it faded, and Panopticon reappears, control reappears. Unity, once again. They're still... The wounds haven't healed, but they're kind of forced into getting along again now.
Okay.
Dad showed up.
Okay, gotcha.
So now... we got to talk about your factions so you can choose methodologies, focus, paradigm, practice, and instruments. Methodology is the way your faction looks at magic. Focus is how you see magic. Paradigm is how you view the world. Practice and instruments are how you manifest your vision of the world into a tool to have magic come out of it, even though you don't call it magic for the purposes of the game. Magic with the K is all things supernatural. Hyperscience for you guys. Except for Eric. For Eric, it is magic. So, the Technocratic Union. Enlightened potential. The future is here, whether we want it to be or not. Technology continually tests and redefines the boundaries of what it is to be human, recreating our culture for the sake of progress. The masses of humanity continually contend with the same two questions. Is technology changing to create the world that you want, or is the world changing in ways you don't want for the sake of technology? Do you control it, or does it control you? It's all about control in the end. Despite the acceleration of technology, the disparity between haves and have-nots remains a serious problem. Not everyone has access to everything. So, imagine a world where all of these things are true, except what's possible with technology has few to no limits. Hidden from the masses, a secret society has developed technology far beyond what the common populace possesses. That empowered elite uses enlightened procedures that employ technological tools. In the hands of such agents, experimental tech, decades or centuries ahead of its time, is no longer theoretical, it's practical. The fate of their world doesn't depend simply on the actions of anachronistic mages holding on to traditions of the past. It depends just as much on a cast of powerful technocrats working to redefine, restrict, and quantify reality. Long ago, your faction forged an alliance to multiply their technological advantage and advance human power against the nightmarish threats of predatory monsters. Unifying many different conventions of bleeding-edge hypertech, they march humanity forward into the future as the Technocracy.
I'm stuck on quantifying reality.
The whole root of Mage is magic is the ability to control reality, and humans as a group create what's called the consensus. If the majority of humans believe a thing is real, it's real. If you can convince them that thing is real, it becomes real. If you can't convince them and you try to do that thing, reality, it slaps you and teaches you a lesson for trying to break the rules.
Sure. No, I understand that if we can get the majority of people agreeing on something, we can change reality itself. I'm looking about the actual quantification of reality, where I'm just like, those 12 apples, they're worth 5.
Hypermathematics, it's a real skill in the game, and you nailed it.
5 realities. 12. That banana.
There are people in your faction, that's their job.
1/16th reality.
There are people in your faction, that's their job.
Oh my god. This number crunching nerds.
Your faction and also the syndicate, who none of you are playing. The rich assholes.
Sir, I found something. 13 paper clips is only worth 1 reality. but 14 paper clips tips the scale and is worth 50 reality.
Stop
don't
talking or
understand.
everyone will learn it's true.
What is happening? What is up with the 14th paperclip?
And now you're beginning to see how a serious horror game can immediately become hilarious at the toss of a
Oh
coin.
my goodness.
I promise this will not be me in the game. I just...
Not all the time.
That was beautiful. I loved it. It was great.
What's that thing I sent you, Sean?
What?
It actually quantifies the game pretty well. Hold on. Oh, yes. Stance Tiger has no time for this nonsense. The Border Corps needs to fill in to replace losses, and he's got to deal with some Therianthropic RDs while his bosses get him a new pan-dimensional squad so he can eventually get back with Alpha Fleet. Space Cthulhu is not going to punch himself with a Star Destroyer, damn it.
That is true.
Technocracy.
I know you. I understand English and I understand all of the words that you said, but my head exploded like about an hour and a half ago. So I'll just nod my head and smile.
So, the Technocratic Union is the name given to a hypertech collective that advances technology as an alternative to anachronistic traditions of magic. Instead of waving a wand, and saying magic words in a pentagram to summon a demon, they whip out a PDA and they type on it, and suddenly they know everything about you. And Steve slips on his mirror shades and looks you in the eye, and you see yourself, and he can control your mind. Magic, different tools. Technology instead of mysticism. In the end, it's all magic with that pretentious K. You're all manipulating reality, but you're using different ways to do it. But in the game world, neither you nor the traditions understand that in the end it's all the same. That's the problem.
Okay, so the characters in the world legitimately don't realize it's all just...
The same thing with different tools, yes.
Got it.
And PCs typically argue a lot about who's right when doing stuff.
I see.
The advantage the traditions have is Eric can eventually one day realize the tools are just him forcing himself to understand how he's messing with reality, and eventually he can throw those tools away and just change reality. Like for now, Eric needs to get high and dance around a fire to enter the spirit world, but one day he'll just look at you and be like, and walk into the spirit world. He'll figure that out. You never will. Technocrats can never go beyond their tools because technology is how magic works for you. Your advantage is you always have toys. Toys Eric will never have. That's how they balance out. So essentially the Technocracy says, look at this light bulb. This isn't magic, this is science. And eventually people believe it is. So now it is. Makes you blink a little and go, if that's true. Yeah, the conspiracy behind the world. The cell phone isn't magic, it's science. It was magic until they convinced you it was science, though. So, like I said...
Does that mean that like a stage magician is actually a magician if enough people think he's actually a magician?
If he could convince them he was, the power would work. And those are called sorcerers. They're not awakened mages, but they can still do little tricks, yeah.
Oh.
An awakened mage actually has to awaken to reality no matter what people believe. But a stage magician could do hedge sorcery. Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
cool.
regular humans can summon entities if they know the right tools. It ain't great.
That seems like something I'd be called in for.
Yes. Something your squad would have to deal with at some point, I am sure. So as I mentioned earlier, the traditions have diversity but no unity. Anyone can awaken, but unrestrained practice has unforeseen consequences. The Technocracy fights to limit those possibilities, reshaping the world in its own image by stamping out all alternatives. Sometimes your methods seem extreme. What is it you said, Steve, about the character you modeled yourself after? You know you're a monster.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm a monster. There's no place in the world that we're building, but I do it because it has to be done.
Correct. It's kind of the Technocracy sometimes. Because, you know, someone has to enforce reality. Imagine, if you will, a freeway without speed limits. high-octane chaos of metal and momentum. No one has any rules, so wouldn't you want someone able to tell you that guy's driving recklessly and going in the wrong direction so that you don't die in a car crash? Technocracy. That's the analogy that best fits what you do. So, it is true, though, that sometimes you breed monsters, too. Hit marks, bat-winged chihuahuas, all kinds of weird shit. In the aftermath of World War II...
So you're saying that a house pet with wings and a weird tail is a creepy monster, and we should have to do something about it?
Not the Technocracy. That's just an R&D experiment. They could probably talk to you, too. Cast spells.
No, Steve. Stop it.
Okay.
In the aftermath of World War II, watch our Avernus game, the Technocracy enacts a pogrom against RD influence, RD being reality deviants. Pogrom, of course, meaning through thunder. It was attempted to wipe out the last vestiges of Nazi, fascist, and Imperial Japanese occultism, but eventually grew to the Technocracy believing they needed to wipe out all monsters and all practitioners of magic that weren't the Technocracy. Reality deviants, everyone who has supernatural powers except you. Eric's a reality deviant, but he's an asset, so he's okay. For now. Don't tell him that. So, I guess a short way to summarize this would be they used to be a lot more intense and nasty than they are now, but you can still be real intense and nasty as the Technocracy. For the greater good, is how it would be said. The ends justify the means. Okay. So not really for the greater good, but the ends justify the means, yeah.
And the means being...
whatever is necessary in the moment.
Or I'm sorry, the ends, meaning order.
A utopia of progress where all humans are in lockstep, accepting that everyone needs to be who they are and everyone needs to be free to make that choice from the influence of the supernatural. A utopia of progress and technology where you're free to be what you want to be, and eventually everyone ascends because all that's left is humans. And everyone ascends to hyperscience.
Okay.
The whole world enters a whole new reality where you're all wizards except you're science wizards. Ultimate ascension. All right. No werewolves, no vampires, nothing. Just the humans and ascension. Kind of an impossible goal. But the average technocrat does not actually view himself as a fascist monstrosity, the savior working for the common good, and most of you are, because especially at your level when we start, you won't necessarily know all the things your faction has done or will. That'll be part of the game, is figuring that out and dealing with it.
Okay.
But the Technocracy is guided by the goals and ideals of the Precepts of Damien. When the Order of Reason was formed, Professor Damien wrote down in the drawing room of Queen Victoria a meticulously detailed ideal of the new secret society. And to this day, those ideals are still followed and are the bedrock rules of the Technocracy. Precepts of Damien, these you should pay attention to. 1. Order, stasis, and consensus. Bring stasis and order to the universe. Predictability brings safety. Once all is discovered and all is known, unity will be one. 2. Technology and training. Convince the masses of the benevolence of science, commerce, and politics, and of the power of rationality. Conflict and suffering will be eliminated in our utopia. 3. Safety and security. Preserve the gauntlet, preserve the horizon. Chaotic individuals who open gateways with impunity threaten the stability of the world. Uncontrolled portals also allow outside forces, such as the Navandi, access to our world. This must never happen. 4. Knowledge and surveillance. Define the nature of the universe. Knowledge must be absolute, or chaos envelops all. The elemental forces of the universe must not be left to the caprices of the unknown. 5. Progress and the pogrom. Destroy reality deviants. Their recklessness threatens our security and our progress towards unity. And I'll stop here and point out, destroy, not kill. If you can stop a reality deviant from being a reality deviant with words, do it. Cleaning up death is messy. Sometimes you just gotta kill it. Depends on what it is. They categorize monsters, and some monsters fall, especially Nefandi, fall into the category of HSKIS, which is holy shit, kill it now. So yeah, sometimes you do have to kill the threat. Enlightenment in the empowered elite, shepherd the masses, protect them from themselves, protect them from others. Those are the precepts of Damien. As you can tell by hearing them, great ideas. A little bit of fascism slipping in there, though. Dangerous,
just
slippery
a wee bit?
slope.
Little?
Just
Slippery slopes.
yeah.
Sure, there's fine people in that
There are,
organization.
you guys. So, Technocratic ranks and designations. Fun things now. There are 6 ranks in the Technocracy. Unenlightened support personnel, rank 1. Those are all the humans who work for you that most don't even know what they're working for. It's just a powerful organization that pays well and has great benefits. And unions. Rank 2, extraordinary citizens, initiated operatives. That's you. 3, agents and operatives. That's seasoned agents who have been doing their job for a while. That'd be your next upgrade. Rank 4, supervisors. Your bosses. They probably suck. Rank 5, managers and masters. You rarely see them, but they tell your bosses what to do. And
So
rank
wait,
6
rank
is
4
control.
is just
No managers.
technocracy middle management.
Yes.
Yeah,
You picked up on that real quick. I like it.
God, jeez. Yeah, no, I take the reports to the managers who review and project and do roadmaps, and then I report that back to you.
Steve, what is it you say you do here?
So, each faction also has a unique name for its ranks. Steve, you are, of course, a black suit. The face of the Technocracy. Sarah, street ops. Sean,
Mm-hmm.
junior marine.
Junior Marine.
Squad leader, sergeant. A lot of you, your rank are sergeants. Your other people in your faction would call you Sarge.
Do I put that somewhere?
You don't have to, it's just fun to know.
Oh.
But if you want to, yeah. The Technocracy is broken into 5 conventions, all answering to control. Each of those conventions has a methodology which supports ways that they want you to do what you do. Each convention has amalgams. Amalgam is usually a team of operatives working together with different representatives from different factions. So, amalgams can all be a bunch of men in black showing up and telling that guy those weren't aliens, you saw nothing. Or they could be a bunch of cross-faction people working together against a specific threat until they're broken apart otherwise. That'll be you.
A task force.
Yeah. Weird name for a task force, that's correct. Every amalgam has a stated purpose, and we'll get to yours. Pretty simple, basic structure there, not a lot of confusion. Mutuality and unmutuality. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Don't be unmutual. Mutuality is such a vital principle within the Technocracy that the words carry strong connotations. Drawn from the Latin root meaning to reciprocate, and related to the word mutate meaning to change. Don't be unmutual. Mutuality suggests investment and exchange between parties. You give me something, I give you something, and we're mutual. And we progress. If I give you something and you take something from me, we don't progress. We're unmutual. We may regress. That's the Technocracy. That's the bottom line. Amongst yourselves.
Good quote, bro. Yeah, that's fine, I understand. I can speak that language.
Yep. Technocracy justice, formal and otherwise, depends upon the principle that the Union gives great things and expects great things in return. Selfishness is unmutual. Disloyalty is unmutual. Rebellion is unmutual. Also, hating the other is unmutual, unless that other's a reality deviant. That's fine. However, if you are a good agent and you're mutual, they will bestow such magnificent things upon you, you won't know what to do with yourself. Become unmutual. Judgment is swift and punishment harsh. And they're not going to whip you. They're going to drag you to Psychops, and you're going to go into reconditioning.
Oh no.
Every agent...
That sounds like a lot of cardio.
Your heart rate will definitely increase. There are 6 degrees of mutuality, and that degree affects a lot of things like dice rolls to get stuff, to interact with other Technocracy. You all start at degree 3, assumed loyalty. You have yet to give your superiors a reason to doubt. You'll be monitored and evaluated, of course, but you're presumed to be trustworthy until you prove otherwise. You go up to 1 and down to 6. Failure to comply, real bad. Don't do it. You'll get dragged into room 101, and you'll come out mutual, or maybe a little twitchy.
Yeah, brainwashing, just with a happy smile.
All right.
Wow.
Enough about the Technocracy as a whole. Let's move on to factions and start picking cool things. Got through that faster than I thought. Steve, you're a new world order. Typical operative than NWO. Despite your fearsome rep, NWO operatives prefer to use subtle techniques whenever possible. The infamous black suit reflects a softer option than cybernetic stormtroopers. Unruffled and composed, you deflect attention while reinforcing the impression of omniscient control. In reality, that's not really true, but don't tell anyone. Even so, your surveillance systems exceed the wildest nightmares of conspiracy theorists. Any video camera, microphone, email server, telephone, or computer screen could theoretically be yours. Field agents and allied citizens follow up on the information collected. Petabytes. Hundreds of thousands of petabytes. Remote intel analysts, data modification experts, and media control operatives process impressions and information, crafting it for maximum effect with a minimal fuss. When force becomes a regretful necessity, you sweep in, neutralize the problem, and deny all disruptive activity with a terse, nothing to see here, move along. Methodologies. Once there was a 3-prong approach. That's changed somewhat now. You have operatives, which is you. Really, the other methodologies don't really matter. This convention's reputation among their associates remains slightly skewed because one methodology is more commonly encountered than any other. You are the face of the Technocracy. To a degree, that confusion is intentional. By dressing the majority of you in near-identical black suits, you create an ominous, unified impression. The unsettling formality and uniform appearance is intimidating. That's what they want. To many outsiders, you are the Technocracy. Except for, maybe Hitmarks, cybernetic killing machines. By current protocol, all enlightened members of the NWO, regardless of gender, begin and end their careers dressed in formal yet flexible black attire. If you rank up high enough, you move to gray and then white. Your uniform.
Wait, the color suits change?
Yeah, to gray, all gray, and then to all white.
Oh, interesting.
Like, what's his name in the Gun Kata movie?
Gandalf.
Oh, Equilibrium.
Equilibrium, yes.
Yes, Gandalf as well.
Right, Gandalf. You
Sure.
nailed it.
So, black suits. They're everywhere. That's how it seems anyways. Cool, calm, cold, sexy. Or in your case, scary. More often than not, mirror
Why
shades.
not both?
So that who you're looking at doesn't see you, they see themselves. Why not both? Yes. The Technocracy's greatest weapon is not Hitmarks, not cyborgs, not killing machines. Nope, it's the unnervingly brisk black suit agent. Master of psychological warfare. So, also it should be mentioned that Psychops is part of your faction. You are reconditioning. So, convention focus. Where other conventions focus on external hypertech, the NWO focuses its enlightened science, the most powerful instrument of all, human consciousness. They employ all manner of sweet gadgets, though. Cool cars, big guns, cyber techs, whatever. And Q Division is part of the NWO. The core of your procedures, though, involve discipline of the mind and body, and the effects such discipline has when reshaping the consensus. Your focus leads to your paradigm. You need to pick one of the paradigms in this list. Your faction really only believes in two.
Okay.
The world, as experienced by you, is one of divine order and earthly chaos. It's a metaphor for the sublime order that through human imperfections can fall into chaos. The divine is humanity united, the chaos is humanity divided. That is what grants power and magic to reality. Second is tech holds all the answers. I probably don't need to explain that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is data. Which of those appeals more to you? Pick either one.
Everything's data until lore comes along.
Wow.
I think with him, it's gonna be the first one.
All right, so divine order and earthly chaos. Just mark it on your sheet somewhere. It doesn't matter where. Probably hit the plus sign next to one of those additional areas. You can just type it out.
Also, I thought I'd let you know that was joke 7 of 9.
Damn it! God,
Sarah
She's going to regain so much ill power in this
Plus
game.
one. Plus one.
Ironically, that was the first mate.
So, practices and instruments. The essence of your approach to enlightened science can be boiled down to a simple phrase: use the least to get the most.
sorry, Sarah zapped my brain completely there. You said divine order
And earthly chaos.
and
controls
earthly
reality.
chaos. Okay.
Divine
Sorry to
meaning
interrupt.
humans, though, not gods. Gods are just monsters from other realities. That's what Sean's for.
Okay. So
He
divine
shoots them.
means people?
People united, all the shards of their enlightenment creates divinity, yes.
Okay, got it.
I'm sorry to have been so enterprising.
You know,
I'm just looking at Sean
Everyone
right
mute Sarah all at once.
Okay, so practices and instruments. Use the least to get the most, Steve. Here's the cue. Most procedures, which are spells, are done by you through psychological tools and tactic. So, like, if you want to do a mind effect, mirror shades. Look them in the eye. They see themselves. Magic. You want to do correspondence. You've got an end dash jacked into your head, which is like a cell phone, only more powerful. You can just kind of look at the internet through your eyes. Eye contact, making the subject stare at himself. Social domination, voices and vocalizations, and true names. Mr. Anderson. Languages. Many operatives speak at least 3, and some speak dozens. Group rights. The uncannily coordinated black suit field op team. Internet activity, and the like. So when you're explaining how your magic works, that's how you want to think about it.
Okay.
Questions on that, or does that make sense?
No, that all made most sense, yeah.
Okay. Mostly. You also need to pick an affinity sphere, which is mind or correspondence. We'll get into the details later, but basically spatial connections or mental power.
I only get one right now?
Yeah.
Mind.
So on your sheet, put 1 dot in mind and write affinity next to it in the blank spot. Basically, that sphere will be cheaper to raise with XP than any others, and no other sphere can go higher than your dots in mind.
I don't have
No blank line.
no blank line.
You can just remember it. It'll be easy.
Okay. So should there be no spheres in any, and no dots in any of these spheres?
Correct, but now you have 1 in mind.
Okay, because I have 1 in primal energy and time.
Yeah, the sheet did some weird stuff. You can just take those out.
Okay, no problem. Cool. All right, 1 dot in mind. Got it.
Sarah! Enlightenment through evolution of biological machines. The flesh is weak and humanity frail. You can fix it, progenitors. On the outside, progenitors appear as weird scientists creating freakish monsters through genetic engineering and chemical enhancement. To an extent you are, however, below the surface, you find a core of brilliant biohackers taking the flawed yet orderly code that forms your genetic makeup, or all genetic makeup, and reprogramming it to better suit your needs. However, you choose to hack the living organism through pharmacy, body splicing, or genic engineering. Whatever it is, it comes down to one ultimate goal: overcome the frailty of flesh and usher in a new and better Genesis. A typical progenitor has intense curiosity, relentless drive, and either profound compassion or unnerving callousness, rarely in between. Methodologies. You need to pick a methodology because yours is not immediately obvious. So, my document sent me to the wrong page. Hold on. There are five of them: facade engineers, cloners, and perfecters of the human body; gene engineers, biomodders. That's what those are. Pharmacopiists, better living through pharmacy, injections, drugs, pills, inhalants, whatever. Applied sciences, which are they go out in the field and they directly interact with the world. And damage control, which your character doesn't fit that. So really, facade engineer, gene engineer, pharmacopiist, or applied sciences. If you want to focus on your character's idea of perfecting herself, gene engineer.
I think I'll go with that.
Okay. Focus of the convention: alters, creates, studies, and destroys life forms. They all pursue those ends through different means, but that's the heart of the group. The paradigm can break into one of three. Might makes right. Probably don't need to explain that. The strong survive, like in nature. Creation is innately divine and alive, meaning creation is imbued with sentience like humans are, and if you can unlock it through genetics, you can tap into it and perfect it. Or three, tech holds all the answers. It's always an option for a technocrat.
I feel like you and I had talked a bit about that.
We did, and it kind of fell to might makes right, because I know that sounds harsh, but it really means you either evolve or die trying, and that really fit your character. You change or you fail.
Alright.
Like your aunt might try to make you static, that's failure. Change is what matters. So that'll be your paradigm. That's how reality works. Evolve or fall behind.
Is there a place on the sheet for that?
You can hit a plus sign next to anything on the second page and type it in.
On the second page.
That's the easiest way. Practices and instruments. As a gene engineer, biotech, medicine work, lots of genetic hacking, and weird science. Not like John's character had a lot of needles and injections. That's more of a pharmacopiist. You're going to be a lot of take a sample of a biopsy, put it under a microscope, rearrange it, and inject new DNA into the subject. It's a different kind of injection than him. Medicine primarily for you. Less chemical, more medicine, and more weird science using medicine. Like, instead of saying, Steve, I know you got blinded by that mage, swallow this pill, you'll be fine. You're going to hook a rig up to his head that pulls his eyes open like in Clockwork Orange, and you're going to be like, here, I can fix that. Weird and freaky.
Cool. Now, can you do it without taking my glasses off?
Yes.
Probably.
Good.
Lots of medical instruments, scalpels, sutures, vessels for liquids and solutives, portable lab equipment, implants, nanotech, herbs and plants, and, brain-computer interface, and bone marrow injections. You'll all be fine. So, that's how you should try to come up with how you describe your spells. Make it as weird as you want. So, you also have to pick an affinity sphere. Life or Prime? You know more about them than the rest of them, so I won't explain them.
Life or Prime, Life or Prime.
You can still have the other, but the one you pick as first determines your ranks and all others, and it's cheaper to raise.
Which one's more relevant to my character, though?
Life. Life would physically alter things about you, whereas Prime spiritually alters you somewhat. Prime is required to create life, but that was never really your focus. You want to modify existing life. That's life.
That sounds exactly like my character.
So you get 1 dot to life.
Woohoo!
Sean!
gotta pay
Enlightenment.
attention now.
Yep. Enlightenment through exploration and revelation. Probably the strangest of all conventions, you argue that you do the best job at protecting humanities. Your stated goal, protect humanity against monsters from beyond. You sound like doomsday conspiracy theorists, but everything you say ends up being true.
Cool.
Alien catastrophes do exist beyond the Gauntlet and the Horizon, and you're there to stop them. There's no typical Void Engineer, though. You could be a clipboards and jumpsuit techie. You could be a Ghostbuster with a proton pack. You could be a theorem-spouting metaphysician. You could be a Hispanic space marine with a really big machine gun and an attitude. You could be a computer jockey, dimension hacker. You could be a deep-sea diver. All of those things are the Void Engineers.
Okay.
Methodologies. So your backstory, because of the things we picked for you, pushed you into, you were actually part of the Pan-Dimensional Corps. However, your squad was wiped out recently, which we'll get into when we get into your one-on-one part. And while they're forming a new squad, you were loaned out to the Border Corps so that you could keep active and not dwell on what the terrible thing that happened. The Border Corps division monitors the Gauntlet, which is the barrier between the real world and the spirit world, and provides first responders. They are the technocratic answer to Ghostbusters and Space Marines. You're not just a grunt, though. You're a trained scientist. Some just take a more hands-on approach than others. The Pan-Dimensional Corps are part of Alpha Fleet and go into deep space and take on the most serious threats. So, the focus of the convention spends a great deal of time in, around, or thinking about the Void, everything that isn't Earth. Earth is known to the technocrats as the front lines, because every other reality touches it, and are constantly trying to break in. Stupid monsters. Your enlightened sciences tend towards strange and showy. Get a lot of paradox. It'll be fun. You blend alien technologies with your own hypertech, making functional weird nonsense. Very Ghostbusters. Their procedures revolve around the Void, too. You've dissected a lot of aliens. Paradigm typically falls into 3. Tech holds all the answers. You live in a world of gods and monsters. You shoot them. Or everything is chaos. Pick your favorite.
We live in a world of gods and monsters.
Yeah, I figured that'd be it. So that's your paradigm, and that's how you believe reality works.
Do I write that down somewhere?
If you need to remember it, yeah, then it shouldn't be hard to remember. Cthulhu's real. That's really what it boils down to. And he influences everything. Okay, practices and instruments, hypertech. You are all hypertech all the time. So, gear, really weird gear too. Whether it's integrated into your body or you carry it around.
Okay.
Pretty simple for you. So when I say how you can describe the fireball, you're going to be like, so I hook my proton pack's battery into this rifle, and then I add a charging barrel to the rifle, and I can focus the plasma through the charging barrel into the rifle, and now it shoots fireballs. That's
yeah. Potato batteries.
Yeah.
I shoot fireballs now.
What was the line? The potato is out of energy?
Potato is out of energy.
You have to pick affinity sphere between 3 of them, but really one defines your faction. Dimensional science.
I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I was about to say that first.
One dot in that.
One dot in that.
And that'll be. Yep. And every other sphere can never be higher than that, and it's cheapest to buy that sphere. Eric, no more technocracy for a second.
Hey.
Wait,
try to get through.
That's it. That's all I get?
that's it for now. I'm gonna try to jump around so we can get a few more things done before we hit time.
One dot.
One dot for now. So, Dream Speakers, did you read anything about them besides the core book?
Not overly much, no.
So basically, Dream Speakers are a faction, but they're basically just disparate practitioners of old ways of shamanic magic. You're all shamans.
Yeah.
But there is a faction that you would belong to in this game. They're called the Ghost Wheel Society. If you go to the drive at any point and look for the Dream Speaker Revised book, page 41. The Dream Speaker Society, the Ghost Wheel Society, are looked down upon by most of the rest of the Dream Speakers because to them you're turncoats. All of your faction are typically con men and freewheelers, and they usually will go to the highest bidder, and they have no problem using technology to get ahead. You don't have a problem mixing magic with tech. Most shamans, that's heresy. You know, you don't care. Whatever it takes to get ahead. Scam a guy, use a PDA to enter the ghost world. You don't care. The paradigm of the Dream Speakers performs magic as a natural consequence of existence. It just is. It's very different than Technocracy. You don't perform magic, you are magic. Everyone has a spirit. Everyone is connected to the spirit world.
Yeah.
Learning the ways of the spirits is the most important thing to you. Your essence is as an intermediary between the mortals and the Umbra because you stand in the middle. You can see it and touch it and eventually travel to it and bring them with you. The focus of a Dream Speaker typically is medicine. Medicine men in whatever form. This is the essence of your arts. An avatar could be called a Hoakan, the mysterious voice that speaks to those who are ready to hear it. To reach past the illusions of mortal life, one must listen to creation's heartbeat, face death, and remain open to the voice through which all life speaks. Practice-wise, Dream Speakers favor medicine work, craft work, dream catchers, etc., shamanism, crazy wisdom, and faith in the spirits. A few, like you, pursue cybernetics, or even things like yoga, voodoo, and witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Common paradigms include, and you'll need to pick one, a world of gods and monsters. Except in your case, they bring wisdom. Don't shoot them all. Stop it. Creation is divine and alive. Bring back the golden age. And rarely might is right.
Like this is a personal character thing?
Yeah, this is how you view reality, which will flavor everything that I do for descriptions for you. It's not really mechanical, it's roleplay.
Okay.
So the world is just gods and monsters and the humans reacting to it. The world is alive and everything has spirit, which is literally true for you. Bring back the old times, which not you because you like tech, and evolve or die. Like Sarah.
Well, yeah. Well, in a way, he's kind of evolve or die because he's willing to dip his fingers into stuff that other, shamanic orders consider heresy, and he's like, whatever, it is what it is. Like, use it or don't. But if you don't advance, you're just gonna turn to a dinosaur. You're gonna die. So do whatever it takes to survive. Essentially, is his sort of motto. So probably that one.
All right, evolve or die it is. Affinity spheres. There's 4 you can choose from: spirit, force, life, or matter. If you choose spirit,
no entropy.
You can still take it, but it's not ever going to be primary. That's a different faction. That's the Yukon.
I kind of find entropy as kind of an interesting thing to have, but
definitely take it then. Yeah, just not as the primary. Spirit is the same as dimension signs for Sean, but they have very different applications, and you can go places he cannot. Technocrats can't reach all realms.
I have the filled in dots on Prime, Spirit, and Time. Do I just take those out?
Yeah. I don't know why the sheet's doing that. I did something to it.
I'll put one in Spirit then, because that makes the most sense from my character, I think.
I agree. Alright. More dots! So, I'm going to talk real quick about the spheres, and then you're going to spend the rest of your dots. So, character sheet, come here. Words are interchangeable, by the way, so I'll be using both. But data/correspondence is the connections between things. That could literally mean space, but it can also mean spiritual connections. That's everything from teleporting to making people care more or less about each other at the very high levels. You can rewrite what people believe and how they think about other people even without mind at the ultimately high levels. The lower levels you can teleport or bring things closer together or farther apart or warp them. Most importantly, you can use magic outside of your own visual range. Without correspondence, you can't cast a spell if you can't see the target. With correspondence, you could send Sean a healing poultice in California while you're in Maine. You could make the two places one. At the highest levels, you can merge spatial locations into one. You can just kind of walk back and forth between disparate places permanently.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't. Nope. Mm-mm. That's how you do you want an event horizon? That's how you get an event horizon.
Dimensional science, or spirit, is the other realms of reality and the creatures that live within them that don't have physical bodies until you give it one. Or that do in their own realms. Communicating with them, making deals, or controlling them, and eventually traveling back and forth to those realms. Entropy is three things. Decay, fate and luck, and also curses and blessings. So entropy is fun. Entropy at the lowest levels is seeing the weakness in things. At medium levels is you can just make things break down. At higher levels you can make people break down. You can also manipulate luck and fate of yours or others.
Yep.
And you can create lifetime curses and blessings. Forces is immediately what people think of when they think of attack magic. Forces is energy in any form. You want to be able to see with X-ray vision, that's forces. You want to create a nuke, that's forces. You want to focus the power of solar energy into a laser beam coming out of Sean's gun, that's forces. Life is the manipulation of anything living. At the lower levels, seeing what's alive, what's wrong with it, what's not wrong with it, healing yourself, making small changes to lesser life forms. As you start climbing the ranks, you can heal others or directly harm their life patterns just by pulling shit out. You can also, with Prime, eventually create life forms from scratch, although you need mind to create intelligence.
You said with matter you can create
Prime.
a prime.
No,
Oh,
life and Prime can create a living entity from scratch. You need mind to give it sentience.
interesting.
And ultimately, mixing and matching spheres is required for anything crazy. Like if Steve has correspondence and he wants to be in 6 places at once, with enough life, correspondence, and mind, he can do that and act independently in all 6.
Hell yeah. I am my own unit of
correct.
black suits.
Matter is inert material and how it interacts with everything around it. Add, remove mass, change forms, lead to gold, that's how that happens. Change the properties of inert substances to other inert substances, or, possibly most importantly, it's also the only way to sanctify, according to Eric, or perfect, according to the Technocrats, a piece of matter to create a magic item out of it. Raw material can't hold magic permanently, but it can with matter. That's how you make a magic sword.
Huh. Okay.
Mind is exactly what you think it is, in every way possible. On the positive side, remove mental illness, make people happy with each other, remove their hatreds, if you want, or help them understand themselves, communicate without speech. On the downside, Man in Purple. So yeah. Don't
On the
worry though for
downside,
anyone watching the Purple Man from Jessica Jones.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
For the people watching though, that's gonna be Steve's specialty. There won't be anything weird. Trust us. We'll handle it well, and there'll be no mind control in the party. Not allowed.
Hard red line for me.
Yeah. Primal energy, or Prime, for Eric, is the essence that connects everything. It is the magic given form. Prime connects all things. Prime is required to tap into quintessence and absorb it into your body. Prime is required to mess with souls or create souls. Prime is required to create magic items or hyperstack that has a power source. Prime is that which controls all else. Prime is the divine spark, regardless of what you think divinity is. Also, at high ranks of Prime, 3 and higher, you can directly burn a person's soul and kill them with it. It's one of the nastiest ways to hurt another person. And last but not least, time. Yes, at rank 5, you can step outside of time and step back in somewhere else. You can literally time travel properly like the Doctor at rank 5. However, at most ranks, that's not its primary focus. At most ranks, you can mess with time. Freeze time, stop an object from corrupting, stop Sarah's body from dying as she gets shot in the face. You can speed up your own time and enter bullet time like Neo. You can slow down other people's time. Cool
Crap.
shit like that. That's mostly what it's for.
Okay.
Moving out of time, though, by like rewinding 3 rounds or even going back and forth in time can be done, but is extremely dangerous, which means lots of paradox can happen quickly.
Nice.
But it's still possible. You'll break the game, you'll break yourself too. So, you have 6 stocks total to spend, you've spent 1. You have 5 more. Nothing can go beyond the rank of your primary sphere. If you want to be able to do any level of cool shit outside of yourself or minor effects, you need 3 ranks. 2 ranks starts being major effects on yourself, minor on everything else. 1 rank is typically sense, not manipulate. So with forces at 1 rank, you could see in the dark, you could have x-ray vision, you can actually see the data moving through a phone cable, but you can't manipulate it. 2 ranks, you could make minor changes, and at 3 ranks, fireball time.
Okay, so we have 5 more dots to put into our spheres?
Yep, any way you want, but nothing can go higher than your primary.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Real quick,
And also,
Tyler,
nothing.
Are we going to
can
do these one by one, or just kind of review?
You can do it in your head, and then we'll review them one by one.
Okay.
I'll start with Sarah so I can help her out. Also,
I added-
nothing can go over your enlightenment or heretic rating, so you're stuck at 3. Yes, Sarah, go.
I added 3 more to life and 2 to primary energy, but if you
Can't
suggest
go over
something,
3.
dang it. Okay,
So life 3, prime 2, good start. What's that leave you? 1 point? Yes.
yes. What do you think about like matter? Or should, well,
it's unlikely anyone else would take matter, so that'll be useful.
or
Usually only life mages or etherites take that.
Well, wait. So which one would be?
Life 3, prime 2, matter 1 is a great combo for your character.
Okay.
Because then you can deal with dead plant matter too eventually. Bring things back to life.
Wait, wouldn't that be entropy?
You'd think so, but you can do it with matter too if you have life. Because when
Actually,
life
three
leaves the
stock
object, it
and
becomes
person.
matter. So eventually, with enough
entropy there?
dots, you can switch them back and forth.
What's entropy?
Decay and luck and fate and cursing and blessing.
That's right. My previous character, Bo, had a lot of
Lots of
entropy
entropy.
for luck. Because he was based off of Loki.
I'm gonna jump to Sean next. What you doing?
I put 1 in data,
Okay,
1 more in dimensional science,
you got 2. Okay,
1 in entropy,
okay, 2 more.
1 in time,
Okay,
and I don't know where to put that last.
so things that have 1 dot you can mess with, but not. You can see, but not really modify if that affects your decision. So if you want more things you can sense, take another 1 dot. But if you want more things you can mess with, put 2 in something you've already got 1 in. So you've got data 2, data 1, dimensional science 2, entropy 1, time 1. With that combination, I would probably put it in data with your character because ultimately correspondence is going to matter for you when you're helming the spaceship. That matters.
Alright.
So you can do minor effects to mess with correspondence, including teleport yourself. You can do minor effects with dimensional science, including possibly pass into other realms. You can sense luck and fate, and see how to break a thing, and you're never late. You're always on time.
I arrive exactly when I mean to.
Steve, what you got?
I put 2 more dots into mind, giving me 3 total.
Okay.
2 into data,
Okay.
and I don't know if I want to put a 3rd into data and just be awesome at that, or put 1 into time and really go with that Agent Smith time thingy. Unless there's another sphere I'm not thinking. that
I'd do
fits well
entropy
with
if
me.
I was you, because you can sense a weakness, including social weaknesses.
Wait, you can do that with entropy?
Entropy 1 gives you the ability to sense the weakness in a thing. How will it best break down? That doesn't mean physically, it could be mentally too.
Oh,
That could be
okay.
amazing for an Agent Smith.
Okay. I'll do that then. So my
Done.
final sphere is 3 mind, 2 data, 1 entropy.
Perfect. At 3 mind, by the way, you can do many things, but one of the primary is telekinesis now.
Jesus.
Telepathy. Your party doesn't need throat comms anymore.
Oh, you can telepathically communicate with everybody?
Mhm.
Oh my.
Okay, Eric, what you got?
Well, by default, I kind of put like at least 3 into spirit, but I don't know where else to put in. Anything else except entropy, perhaps?
So your character...
I'm kind of overwhelmed with choices. I don't know what would make sense for him.
So your character could go a lot of ways.
Mhm.
You could do Prime and be able to mess with the stuff that creates spirits. You could do Entropy and affect luck, because, con artist. And again, people's weaknesses. You could do Mind, so you can mess with people's heads. Those are the 3 that I immediately land on. But also, for when you do travel to other realms, Forces, when all the stuff you bring with you suddenly doesn't work in a strange realm, energy still exists everywhere.
So we're looking at spirit, entropy, and you said mind was the other one?
Or
Was it
forces.
The 4 forces to
Entropy,
manipulate
Forces, or
energies?
Mind, yeah.
What would you do? What can you do with 3 dots in spirit exactly? Like you can manipulate people's spirits?
You can see them and talk to them across the Umbra. You can see into other realms. You can manipulate the gauntlet, which means you can make it easier or harder to cross realms and locations. You have a lot of power over spiritual beings, like werewolves. You can cross realms directly yourself, and you can either bargain with or control spirits to get things from them. Put them in an object to make it magical, or make deals that they give you stuff. All the fun things.
All the fun things.
Oh, we lost Sean again.
Shit.
Why'd we lose Sean? No, bring him back. Someone cast a spell and bring him back.
Mind, forces, and entropy. Okay.
We're sorry, we don't have that
Everybody else
capability.
has like offensive shit, right? Like they have forces and
Nobody took forces yet.
Mind control. And... No.
If you take Forces,
Surprised.
you'd be the only one at this stage, yeah.
Oh god. That would be manifest as like a sort of shamanic magic user that would manifest itself as like, oh, primal forces like fire and wind and water and controlling the earth and shit like that. Okay.
I mean, that rain dance actually starts working. Right.
Yeah. Damn it. What do you get for like entropy 1? What is that? What does that give you?
Sensing the weaknesses between things.
And 2? 2 entropy?
Being able to manipulate those weaknesses to create good or bad luck, or to make non-complex, simple things break down. Like, you can't break down a car at that stage, but a gun would jam.
Okay. I'll take 2 entropy, 1 force, and 3 spirit, I guess. I guess that would be the most sense. Because my character naturally messes with people's heads because he's a con artist. He already has, like, manipulation out the yin-yang, so I don't feel like he'd have a hard time conning people and messing with their heads naturally. I don't think he needs magic to do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's how I do it. For people watching, by the way, Sean's internet died. So we're still here. We just covered the cams so they don't look weird. But this is the perfect place to pause until next Monday anyways, when we will finish this and move into individual stories.
No.
Cool.
Next week we'll talk about Paradox, Quintessence, and Assign Years. We will talk about coincidental magic and vulgar magic. And then we will do your cool background traits, your enhancements and gear, and all your nonsense Technocracy stuff. And Eric's totem.
I'm so
Also,
excited to play.
Yeah.
Also, I'll give you your secondary skills. You'll get free dots for your factions and secondary skills.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into your personal stories, things that you let me pick.
Excuse me.
Sad face. I got all dressed up for you. And you didn't even take me anywhere.
Oh.
Where was I at? Oh, right. So, yeah, for those still watching, that's the end of session 0.1, but 0.2 will complete it for the total 3-hour session between the two. We will pick up after Steve completes his thing next week, which may be before 10:30. So show up for both games and stick around.
Yeah.
And from that point on, this game will begin at 8 and run one full session every Monday. It'll be awesome. No votes tonight because you didn't roleplay. However, mark this down, Steve and Sarah. You got all dressed up for us. You'll get the equivalent of a vote the first time votes are handed out.
Cool stuff, man.
Sweet.
All right.
What do we do with that, just for, our reference and viewer reference?
It'll be like normal, either a half an XP, or in this game, one free recovery of temporary willpower spent in a session.
That could be interesting.
Yes. Super useful because that's how you automatically succeed in the World of Darkness game.
Okay.
So, as we close out session 0.1, remember to find us on the internet at all places. On Twitch,
All times?
and Twitter, and YouTube, and Instagram and Facebook at Vorpal Tales. And look for vorpaltales.com for our website, which has cool stuff on it too, including our calendar, as we make slight changes over the next couple weeks. Always remember to follow us, and if you're feeling generous, subscribe. And soon, pay attention in the next week or so, there will be a Patreon too, with cool
Cool.
perks.
Say what?
It's gonna be cool. Fun things like access to our chat that we use to make each other laugh hilariously during sessions, so you can join in. Along with other fun things.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
So,
Oh, no.
go ahead and shamelessly plug yourselves. I know there's no Sean, so we're going to start with Sarah.
Oh, crap. Okay, cool. So, technically I went after Sean because he pooped.
He poofed.
Yeah, so you can find me on the internet as at Neat Sullivan or Neat & Co Designs. Really wanted to play this character tonight, but that's okay. You'll get to learn all about this, one of my actually possibly favorite characters.
It's gonna be.
We'll see. So, with that, I will be playing Animal Crossing way past the time I should be going to bed. And then you can find me on Wednesday night. Very excited.
They came
for
from beneath the
everything.
sea.
All the time.
Bunch of fish man.
Yes. Alex, the almost shape-shifting spy.
With the yeehaw accent.
Steve.
I'm now remembering that Sarah legitimately used the phrase, "It was in my yeehaw blood today," and outside of Alex as a character, and I almost died.
It's a thing now.
So thanks for that. No, so hi, I'm Steve. You can find me on the internet at Voodoo Arcade, and you can find me here anytime Vorpal Tales is online. So go to the website, check that out, and that's where you'll find me.
Eric.
And I'm Eric. You can find me online at Maron Recluse or just Recluse online, and I'll be here on Mondays hanging out, being groovy and rolling dice. So
Nice.
stick around and enjoy. See you guys later.
And you can find me as Eldritch Echoes on the interwebs. I'm here every day we play games, which is Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we'll see you Monday at 10 p.m. on the Onyx Path channel, or this one. For they came from beneath the sea, it will be a hilarious good time. But for now, agents of the Technocracy, it's time to get back to work. The paradigm won't shift itself. So we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.